DMing, I never felt so angry and disappointed in my players like this before. Sorry, this is a long post, a rant, and I really need to vent somewhere where people would understand how I'm feeling. I don't want to sound full of myself, but I take pride in my campaigns and my world building for my table. I have a lot of free time, so I tend to overbuild even basic things, but my players really appreciate this and are always eager to explore more of my setting. I have a campaign that's been running for over 3 years, and it's nearing the end. Some new players have joined the story. One who was a player long ago and took a hiatus after becoming a father. Let's call him Islo. And another, a friend of mine who played in other campaigns with me. Let's call her Melis. There are already established party members for this 3-year campaign. Vector, Kenru, Balder, Parzival, and fucking shitty with names, and Cowrie. Islo is a druid of dreams and a fortune teller. He reads tarot cards from a custom deck I gave him, which grants him some bonuses or debuffs. Malice is a rogue mercenary, a killer for hire type, who's surprisingly chill for an assassin. Vector hired Islo to find his lost son through scrying, while Balder was talking to Malice about helping him kill a rival who kidnapped his father. Everything was going great and the introduction was going smoothly. Until it wasn't. That's kind of a cool intro to get these characters in, is to have some of the party members hiring them to do stuff. It's neat, I like it. After scrying and some really cool roleplay between Islo and Vector, where they questioned each other about their families and both characters opened up, Islo demanded payment for his services since it cost him to perform the ritual. Vector didn't pay him, but being too anxious about seeing his son. So far, it was just roleplay and they are going to discuss payment later. Meanwhile, Malice agreed to help Balder, but since he was short on cash, he promised that his friends would pay her for the job. This is potentially a very interesting plot hook. The PCs need to stick around to get paid, which is kind of a cool concept. I would make sure this is an agreed upon plot hook, since this is kind of starting to stink of some potential arguing coming up around the bend, or maybe even PvP, if it gets bad enough. Malice and Islo had already met and worked as partners on another job. When Malice arrived at their camp with Balder, he and the party started discussing the lore of the campaign in character, with both Malice and Islo present, listening to the secret plans about killing the rival and other shenanigans, which were supposed to be secret. Then, Malice asked to negotiate terms and payment, but Kenru refused to pay, saying she should do the job for free because she knew too much. At the time, I didn't intervene because it was just all roleplay, and I really thought they would work it out. But then things escalated quickly and got out of control. Malice said she wouldn't work for free while she knew too much, they just have to deal with it. Kenru then suggested they kill her so she wouldn't know anything. That's when I realized I had to step in or things would go downhill fast. Okay, good on DM here. It's fun to let your players RP, but sometimes you need to step in if it's starting to go overboard like it is right here. Once people start talking about killing other PCs, that's when you step in. I told Balder's player that these threats weren't meant for each other but for their rival, because in a kidnapping situation, every second counts. Balder then decided that every second counts, but not every penny, and called Malice a bitch for asking for payment during a hostage situation. I suspended the session and confronted them, saying, "What the fuck are you guys doing? 2 people want to play and you're reacting like this? What the hell is wrong with you?" Then they said those infamous words that haunt me. "This is what our characters would do." I swear to God, as soon as I heard those words, I wanted to rip up my GM notebook to shreds. Those fucking words. It's what my character would do. Yes, your character might do some shit. Your character may be a little more chaotic and may do some more chaotic things. So, at this point, just calmly let the players know that their PCs need a reason to be adventuring. If they can't figure that out, they will need to make new PCs. It's what my character would do would only go so far. Yes, your character needs to have agency. Your character needs to do what they need to do. But you need to keep in mind, your character is but one of many in a adventuring party. That is all of the players at the table. All of you need to be willing to and do what is necessary to get yourselves adventuring. If for any reason whatsoever, you're just like, hey, DM, I'm racking my brain. I cannot get this character. This character just has no reason. I'm sorry, like the way things have gone, or, for some dumb fucking reason, you brought a PC to the table that just can't do this. That's on you. That's fine. You're going to have to sit out though while the rest of the people get to play. You're going to have to, come up with a reason, or the DM will come up with a reason with why your character is going to fuck off into the woods or whatever. Because the whole session shouldn't stop because your PC has issues with finding a reason to adventure. I immediately made them realize that they had just called someone a bitch for asking for payment for a job, and it disrespected 2 players and their characters with some anti-game bullshit. and was just spoiling the fun out of game for them. Both Malice and Isla's players were really uncomfortable, and they even said so after this confrontation, which I'd agree. It's kind of a shitty way to introduce like yourselves as players to the table and PCs to the table, is to have the party immediately kind of like turn on them and treat them like this. Now, I understand every second counts in a hostage situation or whatever. Maybe the Malice and Isla could like, well, we'll forgo payment for now, but talk about it after the fact or something to like kind of keep it going. But also, if your PCs are desperate enough to get these people to get help to find their son, or, you know, they need an assassin to do something, they should be willing to go, okay, cool, yes, we'll pay you. You know, or, oh, hey, we don't have the money, please just work with us or something. Don't be like, well, you're a fucking bitch because you're asking for money or whatever. Like, these sets of players need to find a nice middle ground, and that's the issue, is that the people who are already established at the table are being rather rude here. Balder and Vector's players immediately apologized, but Kenryu didn't. He was adamant that what he was doing was the right way to act, and if I considered what he did was disrespectful, then I was wrong and was disregarding his roleplay, character motivations, and character agency. I suspended the session, told him to think about what he'd done and said, and disconnected him immediately from the voice chat. That's very aggressive, but I can understand doing that. Everyone else apologized, and after my anger subsided, I felt ashamed for letting this happen. I apologized to Malice and Isla's players for what occurred, but they told me it shouldn't be me saying sorry, which is true. As of writing this, Kenryu's player has yet to reach out to anyone. I'm so angry and disappointed because they never acted like this way before. They were always friendly and receptive, and this completely caught me off guard. What the hell do I do now? Hopefully, everyone gets some time to cool down from this. It'd be helpful to have an above-table conversation. Let them know that they need to make sure that their PC has a reason to be grouped up with the entire party. If they want to have their PC demand payment or not demand payment, you know, that's fine. And if they don't want the other PCs to demand payment again, that's fine. There are ways to make that work in RP if needed. They should pause mid-RP and have a conversation about what's going on. Being like, hey, Malice's or Isla's character, you know, your player, to the player themselves. Hey, I'm trying to make this work, but my character in this situation is really feel like this is the angle they're coming from. This is what they're feeling. You know, is there any way to work around this? Or this is why I think this character would act this way. Have above table conversations, because sometimes when you get heated in RP, stuff just don't mesh, and then people start to get mad because like one person's like putting good effort in for RP and trying to be like, yes and, yes and, yes and the other player's like, niet, I'm done. This is like this line in the sand. And it's not like a necessarily good line in the sand, it's that they just don't want to pay money to this PC. So it can help to have an above table conversation just to try to like even keel, get everything kind of talked about so everybody knows what cards are on the table here. That way, maybe, you know, Isla's character or player will go, okay, cool. Yes, I understand this. How about this? Let me say this. And Isla will say in RP, you know, okay, we'll be okay with not accepting the money for now, but we're going to need to discuss this later on, or something like that. Like, you need to give them a chance. Jumping to the immediate, like, fiery shit of calling somebody a bitch and stuff like that it's spicy, and it can lead to a lot of issues. If your PC doesn't have a reason to be adventuring with this group, you'll need to make a new PC. That's another thing to be discussing with these people. A lot of players fall back on the, it's what my character would do, and that's great. You should. But you also need to keep in mind that there is an overall story, and you need to keep that story moving. If your PC doesn't have a good reason, they should be gone from the adventuring party until a chance for them to maybe rejoin appears. Being a stick in the mud will get you nowhere. Some things are not a hill worth dying on. And I feel like this is definitely not a hill worth dying on. Hopefully, OP's had a conversation with their players and potentially Kenryu by themselves just to kind of see what's going on, because maybe Kenryu was just having a really bad fucking day. You know, we all have bad days. You get an RP, you're just like, you know, fuck this shit, you know, kind of shit. And it's not a valid reason to be a dick, but we all have bad days. You know, hopefully they're having this in a nice calm setting and they're able to work this out, because at the end of the day, it sounds like some players got defensive of, you know, their PC having to pay money and stuff like that and lashed out. And it really sounds like this can be something that can just be worked out. They just need to talk. You know, Kenryu may not be immediately up to apologizing. They should, but they may not be immediately, you know, about it. And just have a conversation, because it could just be somebody who's having a bad day. Our next story is going to be from user Workin' and Readin', titled Kids Campaign Gone Not Safe for Work. I, 23 female, have 2 nieces, both 14. They go to a little private school that likes when parents and families, with background checks, get involved in all kinds of ways. One of my nieces is very girly and on the cheer team that I am the assistant coach for. So when my other girl says the teacher who runs the D&D club is on maternity leave and none of the other kids' parents know anything about the game, I volunteered. Yes, I know I have no life outside of these kids. Buzz off. I want to be honest, that's actually really super sweet of them to be involved. I am a huge proponent of people playing TTRPGs. I think you would assume so. I make fucking videos about them. I think it's a really great way to get out of your shell and put yourself in the shoes of somebody that maybe isn't a ton like you. And I think it can teach a variety of skills to people. There's simple math, there's teamwork, patience, there's communication skills, there's decision-making skills that come with it. Like, there's a lot of things you can learn from playing TTRPGs. And to be honest, they're quite fun. I have a cute little campaign idea. Get all of their character sheets and ignore the edgy or joke characters because it's a bunch of middle schoolers. Who cares? But we'll call these problem players Rogue Black, Rogue Blue. I know they spelled it rouge. They meant rogue. Because dumb and dumber is rude. And I'm going to be honest, middle schoolers are the fucking worst. Not totally their fault. They're at an age where their bodies are just a cocktail of all sorts of hormones and chemicals, along with the fact that they're, unsure of who they are and are growing a want to figure that out and also be independent at the same time. But also on top of that, middle schoolers suck and they can be really just absolute little shits. Just the worst people in the world. Anyway, these 2 boys are obviously friends outside of the club, constantly being disruptive and egging each other on to perv on NPCs and generally being awful stereotypes of teenage boys. I try to keep it light and fun and not have to put other people's kids in timeout, but they just won't stop. We can't get anything done, and they won't let me fade to black. I admittedly kind of lose my temper and yell at them while I send them to sit in the hall because all the other kids were clearly uncomfortable, and I know my girl has trouble with these sorts of things. I talked around the PTA and it turns out the 2 have a consistent issue with privacy in that way. But now their parents are asking both me and the school to apologize and I don't know what to do. Fuck that shit. TLDR, teenage boys are disruptive and inappropriate during game. And now I have to say sorry for telling them off. Again, fuck that shit. If you can't behave during a school club, you should be kicked out. These parents don't want to parent. If I acted up like this, not saying I wasn't a little shit at this age, my hide would have been tanned. If you can't respect the club runners and other participants' time, I don't care if it's an after-school club or a table at a friendly game store, then you should not be there. Just plain and simple. If you're not going to respect other people's time, fuck you, you shouldn't be there. Okay, clearly there's some extra edits to this. All right, party people, yesterday I followed some of your advice to sit down with the school office secretary as a mediator and went over my faults and why I did them. I also told Mr. and Mrs. Rogue Blood, Rogue Black's parents didn't show up, what her son had been doing, and that this is a consistent problem more than just I have had with him. The dad didn't seem very interested, and admittedly neither did she, but she did at least respond with more than hums and nods. No big fight, none of the yelling denials I was expecting, until the parking lot. Oh fuck. Mr. Blood must have gone to his car by now, but Mrs. Blood meets me by mind to tell me she's very disappointed a, quote, young mother like you would go out of your way to embarrass a boy in front of his friends. Fuck this bitch, dude. I didn't know what to say, so she just stormed off. Today I'm hosting a dinner for a few of the families on my street. This is the second edit here. The little kids are running around outside and the big kids have a whole game room to mess up, so all the adults get to talk about the D&D situation. Everybody has apparently heard from Mr. and Mrs. Rogue Blood that I am upset I couldn't have any more kids to try for a boy, so I'll never get how they feel. What the? This woman's a cunt. And Rogue Black's family is newer to the neighborhood than I thought, so no one has any info on how they feel about it yet, and I haven't had time to walk over and apologize yet. I'm thinking cookies will soften the blow or something. I don't know. So here's the thing. I am of the thought process here. So I personally would not apologize. Yes, you blew up at them, but they are also not being appropriate and they need to suffer some sort of consequences for this. Apologizing is just going to validate these shit parents and allow them to dig a hole deeper in their shitty parenting. If these kids can't behave, they should not be in the club. These parents just need to parent. They clearly don't want to. They want the school/club to parent for them, and then they're mad when it doesn't go the way they wanted and that their kids get in trouble because of their actions, and also the entire neighborhood also knows that their kids are little shits. Personally, I'd ask to have these kids kicked from the club. If they're not willing to do that, I would just leave. It's clearly fucking volunteer work. It's not worth your time. So hopefully, I would assume if these kids got kicked out, losing on something fun would teach them a lesson, though it probably won't because these parents suck and are not fucking parenting. But that's going to be it for that story. Before we move on to our final story, I just want to let you all know, check me out on twitch.tv/VanDavy. I stream during the week. I stream a variety of different games. I hope I see you guys all there. Links in the description if you're interested. Let's get on to the last story. Our last story is from user Buckaphil, titled, I'm the DM's girlfriend. One player acts aggressive when he's alone in a room with me. I'm the DM's girlfriend. We're playing a D&D campaign. I suggest the DM not to use optional flanking rules because I don't find them fair and reasonable. The DM agreed. As a result, during the first 3 sessions, we didn't use flanking rules, and there wasn't too much fighting, to be honest. Okay, this probably is something, I'm just going to jump in here, that should have been discussed at the table overall, but whatever. One player, let me call him Arthur, he's our friend. I've known him for 4 years, and the DM even longer. We played several TTRPGs before, was quite angry with the DM's decision. Arthur wanted to argue during the last session about flanking. When he understood we didn't use but I suggested to leave the conversation to post-session discussion, which is valid. After the session, we started a discussion on optional flank rules. I gave my arguments. We have a Kobold Barbarian player with Pack Tactics and Reckless Attack. We have a Cleric with Guiding Bolt. We have a Rogue who can hide very well, thus gaining an advantage for an attack roll. I play as a Vengeance Paladin with Channel Divinity giving me advantage on attack roll. I said that it seemed reasonable not to waste all these cool abilities, etc., etc. His argument was something like this. You're a melee. Why not take free advantage? I've always played with flanking rules. Without them, the game sucks. If we play with flanking rules, then we play a story-driven adventure. Without them, we play Darkest Dungeon sort of campaign, where the characters die quickly and we create new ones for every session. It's clear to see that his arguments were a bit absurd, but anyway. If flanking is going to be a make or break for you, then maybe this isn't the table for you. Like if that is what is the make or break, I feel like that's not something that should be make or break. It's kind of just yeah, it'd be cool if we had it, or whatever, I don't care if we have it or not. Also, if you don't have flanking and you are dying every session, then your DM is either way overtuning these fights, or you are rolling or playing like shit. Other players didn't care about flanking rules, so it was ultimately up to the DM to decide if we should use these optional rules. And the DM said no. After some time, he decided to use homebrew rules with flanking giving +2 on attack rolls. And so I thought that this compromise would work for everyone. To be honest, that is a really, really, really nice homebrew because you can't in 5e stack advantage on top of each other. So you can't have like quadruple advantage, so you can't be like, I have flanking from Pack Tactics, so advantage on my hit. And I also have reckless attack, so advantage on my hit. Like that's, so you don't get to just like roll with triple advantage sort of thing. Like that's not how that works. So giving a +2 to attack rolls is a really, one, it's a compromise to help chill Arthur the fuck out. And 2, it's a really nice buff to everybody else who has all these different ways to gain advantage. And now they're just going to get like a free +2 on top of that as long as they're flanking. However, Arthur still bears a grudge. Yesterday, when we all chilled together, the DM went to the kitchen, others were somewhere around, and suddenly I found myself being alone with Arthur in the same room. Nothing bad or dangerous. I didn't even get bothered because we were friends. Arthur immediately broke the silence. Flanking rules, again. He said he knew it was me who manipulated the DM to make a decision. He said that I had influenced the DM too much as his girlfriend because it's otherwise impossible that I've won, quote unquote, against 3 players who wanted flanking rules. I remind you, the other players explicitly said they didn't care at all and were okay with anything. Maybe there's some talk going on behind the scenes here. He said some other shit to me, but when the DM came into the room, Arthur went silent on flanking. In short, one player acts aggressively towards me when no one sees. He blames me for manipulating the DM's decision. I'd personally either tell Arthur that he needs to chill. This is a situation where you need to face them down, to be honest, not be aggressive or anything like that, but when they bring it up again, just remind them that the majority of the players didn't want flanking. And if they call bullshit, call their bullshit. Basically, if they go, well, no, that's bullshit. The majority of people wanted flanking, go, okay, cool. Hey, Steve, Dan, Greg, can you confirm for me real quick, what were your thoughts on the flanking rules? Arthur here seems to think we all wanted flanking rules, but when we talked, you said you didn't want flanking rules. So did you want flanking rules? Was that a thing? Like, just out of curiosity, because we could always change that up if everybody wants to and the DM's okay with it, Because that type of shit will normally put them in their place. So suddenly they're just like, everybody goes, oh, hey, Arthur's being a cock. If that doesn't work for some reason, he continues to be a little shit. To be honest, just get the DM involved. Not because he's your boyfriend or anything like that, but because sometimes some discussions and arguments at the table need to be dealt with the DM involved. You know, because if this doesn't happen, Arthur's annoyance is going to fester and end up boiling over into something, not necessarily violent or anything like that, but he's going to just have a mini explosion and be a dick to just everybody. So let the DM set them straight if it ends up getting to this. So that being said, thank you guys all for hanging out. That is going to be it for today. Please remember to like, subscribe, and comment. I love getting to read your comments. I don't always get around to replying to them all. I try to as many as I can, but I do read all of your comments and I love getting to read them. Check me out on Twitch if you haven't already. Otherwise, I will see you guys all in the next one. Have a good one, everybody.